Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Other Day. This is your host, Daryk here, and it is the middle of the night between Thursday and Friday, September 17th and 18th. I know I have been out of pocket recently with just everything going on, and I am proud to share with you what has been going on in my life as of recent, what I have been thinking about. I know you all care so much about how I think and what I've been thinking about. So here you have it. I just got back, and it is about 1:24 from Cimarron, Colorado, where I ensued my first ever elk hunting adventure. This is an episode that will be the full trip report, given as much information and as much memory as I can on the entire trip for myself to remember, for you to look back on, and maybe to ask me questions. Full disclosure here, I am going to talk about each and every piece that I can remember day by day over the entire trip, including where we hunted, how we hunted, and when we hunted. And so this has been an adventure of a lifetime. I'm extremely tired and extremely exhausted from driving over 17 hours today back to Austin, Texas. And here you have it. So I recently, let's take this back a few months. A few months ago, a buddy and I agreed to make a trip to western Colorado, where we would take on our first ever elk hunting adventure. This friend is Mason. Some of you may know him. And Mason and I decided that it would be best, since we did not draw any tags for New Mexico or Colorado, we decided that we would go with over-the-counter hunting licenses from the state of Colorado. Now, what that means for some of y'all, over-the-counter is just like what you would think. You go and buy a tag over-the-counter just like you would at a sporting goods store, or you can order it by mail, and you can hunt elk in Colorado every single year if you want with these over-the-counter tags. Now, these over-the-counter tags are unlimited for everybody, so anybody and everybody can get them, and they only allow you to hunt with these tags in certain units in Colorado. What I mean by a unit is called a general mountain unit, and this area is a large mass of land that anybody can hunt on in these lands, depending on which land you are in. But the unit discloses what area you can hunt in, and there's several different types of land within a unit, including wilderness or Colorado state-run land, which is called public land. Same thing with BLM land. Bureau of Land Management manages certain parts of Colorado, and you can also hunt on that. There's also, outside of those two categories, you have private land, which you can hunt on if you have permission. So plenty of Colorado residents own property up there and can actually hunt elk out of their backyard with an over-the-counter tag if they happen to have elk on their property. So we decided to go to Unit 65 in western Colorado. This is just south or contains Montrose, Ouray, Ridgeway, Cimarron, and is west of Gunnison. So if you've been to those, north of Silverton and Durango area, so just up north of there. We left on last Friday, and last Friday night we drove all the way to Amarillo. In Amarillo, we spent the overnight in a hotel, and then we finished our drive through to Cimarron the following day on Saturday. We stayed in a cabin that we booked through Airbnb that was right on the Cimarron River, right very close, the closest you can get to our hunting area, just north of our hunting area. And this hunting area was just in the Compadre wilderness, just south of Cimarron. And this is, I know, a huge area, very large area. But we hunted on the Cimarron River Basin, just downflow of the Compadre Peak. So if you can go look at that on a map, you may be able to find the three forks that we hunted in, including the mesa. And so, yeah, the adventure ensued. We stayed at the cabin, and it was a beautiful little cabin right on the side of the river. And it was just beautiful. We were very excited. It was a non-air conditioned, little propane stove driven cabin. I mean, about as Colorado as you can get. There was a general store that sold hunting licenses there, fishing license, and a guy in there that had hunted that unit also, probably opening day, and already had got his elk, considering he's a local. But he had some delicious burgers. We had some delicious burgers in there the night before, and then we headed off into the Cimarron River Valley underneath the Compadre Peak. Now in this area, these are three valleys that we mainly hunted in, and these three valleys consisted of the East Fork, Middle Fork, and West Fork valleys, and each one of the forks contained a little bit different opportunity, and so we just ended up going into one of the forks because that is a massive amount of land to cover if you're going to go through each one. But what we had happen was we went Sunday morning. We checked out of the hotel, checked out of the cabin, in Cimarron, and we drove about an hour and a half on a dirt road maintained by the Colorado State, and drove all the way back to East Fork Valley underneath Compadre. Once we were there, we parked the truck, got our bows ready, took a couple shots to make sure they were sighted in and ready to go for the hunt, and then we took off. We had our packs on our back. We had all the food we needed, all of the supplies we needed, all of the shelter, sleeping bags, everything in a big pack on our back. And so we took off down the mountain, and there we go. We went in to the East Fork Valley about 5.5 miles until we got to a wide meadow where we could glass and check out any crossing animals through there. When we got there, there was probably 3 cars in the lot, and thinking how big those valleys are, 3 cars isn't that concerning, considering how much area we truly have to hunt and those elk truly have to roam in there. So not too concerning. We hiked in there at about we got to our location and started packing about 10 a.m. After the 5-mile trek, we were there at about 1 p.m. Mountain time. And so obviously it was a pretty rough 5-mile hike. 5 miles shouldn't take you that long, but going uphill, climbing in elevation the entire time, we were taking it slow. It was really hard with a big pack on our back in the high altitude. And yeah, we've been training for this a few months, and Mason and I we had to take some breaks. It's rough, and you don't want to wear yourself out on the first day when you're going on a potentially 5-day hunt. And so we get to our location, we find this meadow, we set up camp at one of the campsites. You can identify the campsites there by just finding little fire pits around. Nothing, it's very primitive, just a fire pit. So if you find a fire pit, there's your campsite. So we went all the way in about 5 miles, set up camp, hung up our tents and hung up our food so that black bears couldn't get into our food each night. And we're just talking and having a good old time, telling jokes, and just seeing how excited we were to go find elk. And so we were very excited about this opportunity, and we're ready to get boots on the ground and start hunting the next day. So That night we went to sleep at about 6 p.m. It was still light there. When we got there, we were just so exhausted from the hike in and traveling that we decided to get early sleep and wake up at about 6 a.m. the following morning. During the night, it dropped to, we are assuming, the high 20s. It was extremely cold on the mountain, and we both got barely any sleep, considering it was our first day elk hunting and considering that it was high 20s. It was very, very cold. And we kind of assumed that going in, that we would have some cold nights, and brought some extra thermal layers to wear, made sure our sleeping bags were of rating, and went after it. And so it was very, very cold. Cold to the point to where I was in my mummy sleeping bag trying to fold the hood shut because it was letting too much cold air into my sleeping bag. We woke up that next morning and had ice on our tents. That it was not just frost, it was completely iced over, just from the moisture freezing on our tents the night before. So it was very, very cold. And so that first morning we wake up about 6 a.m. before sunlight, freezing our butts off and just ready to go, ready to hit the mountain and see what's there and see what we can hear. Let me go back a little bit. The day we hiked in, as we were setting up and relaxing and getting off our feet and getting ready to go to sleep that night for the next day, we did see approximately 6 other bow hunters come past us on the trail. So that being said, there was a lot more people that entered the trail that day. Upon entering the trail, we did see a group of 3 hunters and talked to one of them that was carrying an elk quarter out. And so the cow, they told us that they had harvested a cow elk and they were headed out. So we said, yep, that sounds great. We will head up the river and see if we can't find any more. And so when we got up there, several other people passed us, and there was just tons of people already in there. So we were in the Middle Fork, and we hiked up behind camp all the way up to about 10,500 feet, probably pushing 11,000 at some points, when we were up high, and we were just traipsing through all kinds of deadfall, all kinds of thick bush, just looking for any sign we could, going up and down the mountain and just scanning as much as we could. That day we couldn't find anything, no droppings, no tracks. Most of the tracks we saw were either goat or horse tracks on the trails. Also in the game trails, there was also tons of livestock track, which they release cows in those areas for livestock, and landowners around the area get to lease that. But yeah, we headed into the Middle Fork, went up and down the Middle Fork, slept there that night, woke up the next day, hunted a little bit that morning, but then we decided, hey, let's go back and see if those guys that shot that cow elk left, and see if those elk are still in that area. So we packed down there in the middle of that day, which was it was Tuesday evening, or Tuesday, actually, yeah, I believe it was Tuesday in the middle of the day. We packed all the way down, and then Monday in the middle of the day, we packed all the way back down to about 1.5 miles from the trailhead, so a considerable distance away. The day before, there was all of those hunters that packed past us ended up hunting in the same area we were, so there was no elk in the area. They all got bumped out, and they all got sent away. That Monday, we packed out and we camped where those other hunters who had harvested the cow camped. They had left, and so we were going in there to see if they had left any elk behind. We hunted the following morning up on top of the mountain to see if we could see anything come out into the meadows. Nothing came out in the meadows. We found the wallow that they were hunting, and we also found the high spots that they were hunting. So some old sign in there, but nothing to the point of promise in there. So it was quite a bit of hiking, quite a bit of just lurking around and just seeing what we could see. But after that, we hunted that morning. During the day we hunted, and then we hiked all the way up on the western portion of the Eastern Fork Valley, near the trailhead, about 1.5 miles away. And we packed all up and down the western side of that valley and tried to find anything we could, just livestock sign. We really couldn't find anything. It was very, very disheartening. But we got through with that. We hiked out of Middle Fork or Eastern Fork and went to the High Mesa and found a ton of old sign in the High Mesa about Tuesday. And then we decided Tuesday the truck was having fits. Had a couple of check engine lights on. And yeah, we left out of there Tuesday, went and stayed at our... we left out of there Wednesday, after checking the High Mesa Wednesday morning, and stayed at our Airbnb, where we got a landowner in there who mountain lion hunts with his dogs and has all kind of crazy taxidermy and loves his boxed wine. It was really funny and a very, very sweet family, and super grateful for them. And they gave us a lot of great pointers to come back the following year and hunt with. For example, using the website called Hunt Data to discover all kind of hunt data where everything was located and maybe where elk herds would be at certain times of the year. Hunt data was super invaluable. They also said, make sure you draw a hunt to limit the amount of hunters who are on that property. And then, they went through all the stories of all of their mounts in their house, and it was incredible, including all of their African animals, which was really, really interesting. But anyways, that is pretty much my elk hunting adventure. We got home this Thursday night, early Friday morning, and I am just exhausted and tired, as you may hear, but I wanted to get this on recording before I went to sleep and lost all of these memories of getting back. Mason and I had an absolutely stunning adventure. Stayed in Crawford with that family and ate at a place called Joe's, the only restaurant in town, which was this pretty sweet bar. And so we met a lot of locals in this tiny little town in western Colorado, and just had a sweet time. It was a ton of fun. We were unlucky to not find any elk at the right time, but had some great pointers and great learning experience to learn off of, and some great ideas to work from for another adventure. And so, man, I'm just super excited. I don't think I've ever really pushed myself as far as a hunter goes, besides whitetail hunting for long extended times in the season, and hunting real late into the season like I did last year. But I'm super excited. I think there's so much from this trip that I'll remember, and so much that I'll cherish, and things that we saw. We saw a Cyrus moose that was the biggest moose I've ever seen in Colorado. Literally, we met two guys from Ohio that helped a 67-year-old guy from Montrose with a musket kill the state record moose, Cyrus moose in Unit 65, which was incredible. We saw pictures of it. It was an absolute giant. So that was also really cool. And then the people we stayed with on the last night with Airbnb was incredible. They were so sweet, so nice, had a beautiful place and a beautiful story. And we were just so happy to hang out with them and learn from them, and learn as non-residents from the locals. So it was a ton of fun. More to come. Feel free to ask me questions. Feel free to drop me a line and ask questions about how it went, what we saw, if we saw anything. We ended up seeing 3 elk on the drive out. out in the meadows in the far east Colorado. But those were the only elk. We saw no bears. We saw tons of pronghorn on the drives in and out. We saw the moose and the 3 elk way in eastern Colorado. So yeah, it was pretty sad not to see any elk while we were hunting or even hear them. So it kind of sucked, but at the same time, it was a ton of fun. It was a great learning adventure, and just to kind of see how far I could push myself as far as a hunter and see what I could do as far as a camping person and a person who loves the outdoors and loves being out there and just really loves the wilderness and loves really wild places. And it was really wild being out there, just remote and alone and no signal, and it was pretty wild. So yeah, an absolutely amazing adventure that I think I'll take again someday soon, hopefully with the ending a little bit better, to have an elk with me and be able to provide my family with all that meat. But yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for listening to my mumbling in the middle of the night when I just got home off a 17-hour drive. And I really appreciate it, folks. Feel free to call and text me and just ask how it went. See if I have any other memories, or if you've been there, let me know. If you've ever been elk hunting, let me know. And let's talk. Let's see if we can cross notes on the same unit, or maybe plan a trip again, and maybe hit up another unit and see if we can't draw a tag for some elk. But again, thank you so much, folks, for listening. Thank you so much for tuning in, and just enjoying and just checking in and seeing my elk hunt recap in 2020. Thank you so much. I will talk to you soon about what I'm thinking about. Bye. What is going on, everybody? My name is Daryk Gansky, and you're listening to The Other Day podcast. I am your host today, and I hope you are doing well. I will get straight to the point today. We have a little bit of a longer podcast. I really enjoyed all the feedback I got regarding the most recent episode regarding my elk trip. Thank you for bearing with me, as it was about 2 a.m. after driving 17 hours all day. I was very exhausted, very tired, but wanted to get my thoughts out to you as quickly as I could. So thank you for listening to that, and thank you for taking the time to ask me questions about what we did and what I enjoyed about the trip. Let's get straight to the point. I found an old recording that my parents and I did in 2016 on the way back from our deer lease, where we talked about anything and everything. It was a really great recording where I just got some quality time with them after a very needed weekend at the deer lease chasing the elusive white-tailed deer. I can't wait for you to listen to this podcast. I hope you take it as a learning tool, just to look at maybe the relationships you can build outdoors, maybe some motivation to get you outdoors, or even just to realize how much fun I had growing up in the outdoors. But thank you so much for listening. This podcast will sound a little bit strange, as I recorded it on an earlier concept called Take a Hike that I thought I was going to create. Did not come to fruition, and therefore I'm here with The Other Day podcast. So I hope you enjoy it. This is me and my parents on The Other Day podcast, talking about our experience with the outdoors. Thanks, guys.